Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Purpose Playbook. We're just joking about Louise's internet signal. We tried to do this just pre-Christmas, and it was one of the most interesting podcasts I've been a part of. And then suddenly, and we lost you, and we tried to get it back, and it didn't work, and so we postponed it to now, and we're going for round two. So I'm happy because I absolutely love hearing you talk and your passion and whilst your story is super serious, I think the way that you carry yourself, and we've spoken about this, about laughing about some of the things that have happened to us as a way of almost dealing with it and getting through it and facing it head on. I think you're absolutely so inspirational when it comes to that. But for people who don't know, let me just do you a quick intro. So obviously, this is Louise Allen. Louise's story is, without doubt, one of resilience, determination. She survived an unspeakably difficult childhood, including neglect, abuse, and life in the care system before running away at 15 to start a new life. I think you've had an awful lot stacked against you, but you've gone on to become, and I know I'm going to miss stuff, bestselling author, a campaigner for children in care, the founder of an amazing charity called Spark Sisterhood, for girls leaving care. You are now a foster carer yourself. You've been on Loose Women, the BBC, and do absolutely unbelievable work. So I don't want to give too much away, but welcome to the show.
That's amazing. Was that really me? Thank you.
No worries. Well, look, but let's go there. Let's dive right back, because I think the way that I'd like to talk about this podcast, I think there's three sections. I think there's your story, because it's really, really important to tell that and for people to understand why you are where you are. I think there's later life and what you've done and what you've gone on to do. And then I also think there's a bit about the future as well, because we've got some quite exciting news that we can talk about. So yeah, let's go right back to the beginning.
Okay. Right. Let's go right back to the pre-beginning, because I was in care actually before I was even born. I was made in the back of a taxi in outside Oxfordshire. I only found that out more recently. My father was way older than my child birth mother. I think he was on his second marriage. He had children. And he effectively grew my mother. And a few years later, I came along. And then she was still very young, and I was one of the famous forced adoptions of the late 60s, early 70s, where she was basically lied to. And I was taken away at 6 weeks and put with a family who the children's department wanted me to be adopted by, but the family said, no, we don't want her. We'll foster her, but we actually don't want her. And this is a very reoccurring thing that happens in children's social care. And you'll hear about this a lot, about children and the parents, guardians, whoever, is they don't want them. But as soon as someone else says, all right, then we'll have her back, they want them again. So you end up in a push-pull situation. So there's wonderful documentation of literally like, no, I'm not having her. No, you're not. I am. In the file. So eventually, I was adopted at 2 by them, but they were already on the under the spotlight by the same children's social department. They were called children's departments then, and they all looked like they were run by people with plaid hats and sort of, strange outfits from another era, from another time. And they said that I should not be adopted. Well, the social workers and the guardian ad litem, and for those of you who don't know what that is a person that advocates for the child. And I was only a baby, so I couldn't really speak about what I was thinking or feeling, and I had no life experience because I was in nappies. So it was they asked and recommended, no, there were these hand scribbles in my file saying basically, don't let this child be adopted by this family. Whatever you do, this is tricky, this is dicey, all those wonderful phrases from the other time. And the judge decided that I should be adopted. Now, I'm not sure whether that was because of the sheer number of babies coming into care. Now, I came with a little bit of a legacy, which I think they might have known about. And that was my birth father was a serial paedophile. and I am of mixed race. So, and I was definitely, and then the children's departments and a lot of people in that sector were deeply religious. So I think I didn't hit any of them. I hit high need because I think what was the priority was, I read somewhere in my file that this child must be baptized. So
Yeah.
I must, it was another time.
Yeah.
So it didn't go well. The adoption, once she got me, that was it. They couldn't get me back. And this is what's important for children, is that if you are fostered, you have more rights then than a child that was adopted, because the judge said goodbye and you are very much on your own. But within the community, that was a village that we lived in, neighbours and people within the area were repeatedly reporting to the children's department that they could hear our screams, that they didn't like the condition we were in, that we were unhappy. Her potty training technique, which a neighbour recorded hearing me scream, was to sit me as a toddler over a potty of bleach. So I sat on a thing of bleach. One time I was sitting, I'd been out in the garden, got muddy like children do, and she sat me on the draining board and poured boiling water from the kettle over my feet and ankles. She used to have a rolled up newspaper with a stick in it, and when we sat at the table, she used to whack us with it. But she had her own problems. Obviously, she was a wartime child who was serially abused herself, and there was no child protection. So one of the things I learned very quickly with the abuse of my own childhood that I received is that I don't forgive anyone, but I need to understand it, and I need to contextualize it, and I need to understand why this was allowed to happen. Then I don't take it so personally.
Because there's a huge link, isn't there? I mean, very, very. I don't know what the stats are, the percentages are, but a huge percentage of people who abuse have been abused. Right? It's learned behaviour.
It's learnt behaviour. If it's all you know. And I had to work very hard on myself. I didn't become a parent. I was 38. I had to make sure that I understood who I was. And I'd also needed to watch enough good parenting through friends and through people just in the community where I thought, oh, that's really good parenting. I'm going to have that.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have any good modeling. And there was no way I was going to do to my children what had happened to me. So there was a time of learning in between, and that was through observation and through seeing how children react to their parents. And I wanted children that could tell me anything.
Yeah. So let's go back to the abuse that you're suffering. I mean, how did you get through that as a young kid? Like, what were the coping mechanisms?
I'm not quite sure. The situations where you're normal, so until you know that what is happening to you is unnormal, you feel bad, you feel scared, you feel overwhelmed. She was self-medicating with Valium and Librium, and would give me one in the night as well. So I was I was on prescribed meds for years. I don't know if that's affected me or not, but she used to just, if we looked like we might need some work or attention, she just knocked us out with a Librium or a Valium. But it was unregulated. She was allowed to do it. The physical abuse, it sounds really, I don't want to minimize it. The physical abuse heals.
Yeah.
It just heals. The emotional abuse is more complicated, and it is something that you have to decide how you're going to live with it, because it never goes away. When I went very, very rarely to any kind of therapeutic setting. And the one time I did, and I took my paperwork with me because I needed a professional to read it through with me, the professional burst into tears. So I knew that my story was too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I had managed it by concealing it. And that shame, particularly with sexual abuse that we have, and physical, but all of it, the shame that you're not living in the TV advert, that your life is so different. And you go to school and you watch your friends and they got their nice clothes on and they're all happy, and you hear stories about they went to see their granny at the weekend or they went and did something, and you know your life is nothing like that. So you close down and you become quiet. I was an incredibly shy and quiet child, and I hid it, but I obviously didn't hide it well enough, because when I read through my notes, so many people had tried to help. The starvation was difficult. The other child who was equally starved developed quite a disorganized eating disorder. He just and it didn't really happen to me. I don't know, but I had one person in my childhood who I knew was safe, and I was very lucky. And there is research, and I actually do agree with this. If you have one person in your life that you feel safe with, that you know on a subconscious level, you don't go, are you safe? You just feel it. So I had this man, and actually, in hindsight, if this was run by Children's Social Care Protection Team now, small child hanging out in a caravan with a retired navvy in an orchard.
Oh God, it'd be very hard not to jump to conclusions.
It wouldn't lift, would it? But the fact that he was the safest person I knew, and he fed me, and he never talked about the abuse. I know that he knew about it. I know that the Polish communities that were in the orchard and caravans reported it, but because they were foreign, they got rejected. Those reports got rejected. But he taught me the most important thing in life. It doesn't have to be heavy. Nothing has to be heavy, and we can give ourselves permission to laugh. He was the funniest man I have ever met, and I have always, since him, and I spent years in his company, been drawn to funny people. I was the kid. If there was the one going, do you want a fag behind the bike shed? I'd be like, I'm there in 5. I am that child. I'm still a bit like that. I liked the naughty people, the funny people, the mischievous people, because they have the stories, they have the compassion, they have the confidence. And I think because of him, now my other sibling didn't spend time with him because our ages were slightly different and has a very different story. But I think I was very lucky to have him close by. And he taught me how to garden. I used to put curlers in his hair. He had a big comb over. I used to put curlers. I used to do makeup on him. He just sat there reading the paper, drinking a Guinness, didn't care. It was lovely. And I think he got from me, because I'm sure he desperately wanted children, but his life didn't pan out. He got, in a way, the child he didn't have. So we were this weird combination of this little girl and this old man in a cloth cap, walking around, going for walks, looking at horses. Nothing ever happened that was untoward. And I can honestly say that. And I'm so grateful that he landed in the orchard next door to my house. So we need one person.
Yeah, one role model. So what happened next? So you obviously found a bit of solace in the man in the orchard, but things sort of almost got from bad to worse, I guess, because you ended up running away.
Yeah, home wasn't very safe, and my adopted mother was slowly or quickly going into psychotic episodes. I think she did probably have bipolar, and because of the self-medicating and her own early life issues, was now at a point which is really difficult, and she was actually putting me in danger, which is really hard. I think that was the hardest thing to come to terms with, because it taught me a lot, because we go, oh, you should love your mother. What if your mother's psychotic? You should let your mother, listen to your mother. What if she's mad? So she would drive me to car parks or woodlands, and leave me there. And she'd say things like, go look at that tree. And I'm go look at the tree. I'd turn around, she'd be gone. And I'd be in the woods on my own, terrified. She would just walk out of places and leave me. I remember being dragged through a car park, trying to get in the cars, hanging on the door handle. She's driving off, and people were screaming and shouting, but she was going, and I had flung off the car. I mean, mad thing. She used to hurt me quite a lot. And when I was sexually abused well, nearly sexually abused. On this, I had been sexually abused by children and a male social worker. But I had a dog. This is the story, I think, which sums up my also my love of animals. But I had a dog which I was given through someone. It was it was a building site in a caravan. It was a Labrador cross, and I absolutely love animals and I love puppies. So I was straight in. I was about, I don't know, 10, 11, straight in to see the puppies. And then the lady who had, it was a cafe on a building site, said, "Do you want one?" And I said, "Oh yeah, but I have to." And she approached my adopted mum, and she must have thought, right, I'm getting rid of these puppies. I came home with a puppy and I named her Bella. And she was my life. And I trained her. I got up early every morning and I used to walk for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles with her. And I had a very tight relationship with this dog. She was everything. And then one day I came home and Bella wasn't there. And I said, "Where is she?" And she said, "I took her to the vets."
Oh.
Dead. I cried and I cried and she did this with me with a chicken. I had a pet chicken that I used to keep in an apron that the Irishman gave me an apron and taught me that if you put an egg under an Anglepoise lamp, it will hatch. So I did it and it hatched. And I had this chicken who called Lucky, who wasn't very lucky, but she drowned her in front of me. So everything I loved, she tried to destroy. And that is a very, out of all the pain and the abuse, I think that got to me the most. Anything, any solace I had, any comfort and joy, which is no issue with her, because I earned the money to pay for the dog food. The dog was so well trained, and the dog was walked twice a day. But when she took my dog, I kind of changed. I changed. And it was, "You have hurt me more than you'll ever know. You've hurt me already," but I kind of tolerated that somehow. I protected her when social workers came around, because all children do that. The social workers sit there and go, "Okay, is there anything you need to tell me?" "No, nothing to see here. You never, ever snitch on the person that is abusing you. You never do that. And it's just stupid to think that we will. How you don't." So after that, I changed. I felt a change and I hardened. And then that, with a bucket load of hormones, as well as I hit teenage, I became a complete rebel. I discovered punk. I was listening to the Sex Pistols illegally because I wasn't allowed to. And I remember one time my adopted dad, he had one of those old Bakelite radios, the brilliant sound, clunk, and then you get the sound. I found Radio 1 and I found The Clash.
Yeah.
I thought I'd found heaven. So I was jumping about. So finding Radio 1 and music and a bottle of sherry brandy, which was hidden at the back of their drinks cabinet, just changed my life. That was it. I was unstoppable. So you couldn't keep me at school. You couldn't keep me at home. I didn't feel welcome. I was just roaming, but without a dog. I roamed. And then I'd walk into school out the other side and into Oxford, where I spent my entire days, not in the shopping precinct, smoking and drinking, in galleries, museums. I was so hungry for knowledge, but at school I had been a dreadful failure. I was put in the remedial classes because they never once said, "Are you all right, Louise?" Never once did they say, "Is something going on at home?" I could not hear them even speak. I was so scared sometimes. And I wasn't a brave child. I was incredibly quiet and controlled. So I didn't speak. And they put me on the lowest stream for everything. But art, I was really good at. I was really good at drawing, and I made myself really good at it. I was on a mission to go to art school. So I ended up not at school. I ended up being educated freely by the city of Oxford by going all over. I learnt about gardening and botany through the Botanic Gardens. I walked through the university buildings, went to the Bodleian Library. No one questioned.
No.
I had this completely free education. It was wonderful. Then I go home, back to that, and just go to my room and be quiet. I learnt that being quiet was the best thing to do. Until one time I was beaten half to death, really, that there was someone else in the house that didn't like me at all. I think it was jealousy. I can say that now I'm older, but at the time I didn't give myself enough credit or give myself enough confidence to think that how could anyone be jealous of me. But I was this quite lively minded, creative, quite funny little girl, and I shone brightly next to another child that wasn't that.
No.
So there was a lot of malice going on. But after one hideous night, I'd been out to see a band. I was so into music. I'd been out to see a band in town on my bike, and I'd back in time and all the rest of it. And I'd got in, and she literally pulled me through the door, calling me a slut and a whore and all. Ugh. And I got in, and then this person thought that they were in charge because she'd given them permission. And I felt like I was in a wrestling ring where she was standing on the side. Go on, hit her, get her, kick her. I had a boot in my head and on my face. I was kicked in the back and my rib cracked. I had my head smashed over the sink. I just thought, enough. So I went upstairs, and when it got quiet, I literally took a bag and walked to Oxford Station and got on a train. And the rest
Jeez.
is history.
And describe the feeling, because I can imagine the concoction of thoughts going through your head at the point that you have made this big bold decision and you've taken one foot out the front door. You must have had every emotion going.
It was, how do you describe it? I think it's like being in a war zone where you just run for safety. I needed some shelter. I knew I wasn't, I'd known for years I wasn't safe, and I knew that the whole situation had been set up so I would not be believed. She told people in the community that I was a thief and I was a liar. So, but no one believed it, but I thought they did.
Hmm.
And that was enough to silence me. And
Yeah.
that's what abusers do. That they layer, like the social worker who was trying to abuse me in the car, but an ambulance swung by and it put him off his stride. I was going to a temporary foster placement because she couldn't deal with us. And I got there, and I overheard him say to this woman, "Be careful of this one. She can tell lies." It's so powerful, isn't it? That's all they have to do, because people don't believe children. I always believe children. The moment they tell me something as a foster carer, if they disclose, I believe them. Absolutely, I believe, because in their head right now, that is their truth. Whatever the law says,
Yeah.
right now, that's their truth. I believe them. But so many people go, "Oh, you know what they say. They exaggerate." No, keep digging, find out. But it amazes me now how easy it's like my birth mother was groomed by a very professional, very experienced paedophile. But when I said to her after my first book, there was a documentary made, one of many. This one was a French documentary company. They filmed me with her in her home, and they asked a question where they said, "How does it feel to know that you were groomed?" And she said, "I beg your pardon. I was not groomed by him. I loved him. He made me feel special."
Yeah.
And he
And how
also,
later down the line was this? How old was she when she was saying that?
in the 60s.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So you do a lot of damage to children, and I always say to people that some of us make it, but not enough, and a lot just repeat it, or they go under,
Yeah.
or they live some kind of fantasy, deluded existence because it's too painful to hear the truth. Now, I am the biggest believer of the truth will always do. Give me the truth and then I know what to do. I cannot survive if you tell lies to me. I don't know what to do. But it breaks my heart how easy it is to abuse children because they are innocent, open and honest until you make them not so. And then as soon as they get a little bit bigger, we then say horrible things about them, like, oh, they're really badly behaved, or they're this, or they're delinquents, or they're whatever. Well, why do you think that is then?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've had goosebumps about 4 times already in this conversation, by the way. Okay, cool. So you've stepped foot outside the front door. I mean, if the story wasn't crazy, probably, I don't even know if crazy is the right word for it, but we'll use it enough. I think it takes an even crazier turn now. What happened next?
Well, I ended up in Portsmouth with absolutely nothing.
At the age of what?
15. I'd never been to Portsmouth before.
Why Portsmouth?
Because it was the next train.
Oh my goodness.
And I blagged the whole journey. You get very good at survival. I call it entrepreneurial skills and marketing, but you get very good at surviving and blagging. And I could see the ticket master coming along clicking tickets. I haven't got a ticket. And I saw a notice saying a fine. I'm actually fundamentally honest. My core is honest. So if someone says you're going to get into trouble, I'm like, I'm terrified. I'll try and always do the right thing. So I legged it. I just kept walking and hiding behind things. I thought, this is what happens. This is the metaphor for when a child is rejected from a family or society. They duck and dive. You literally duck and dive, which is what I did. So I got to Southend. I remember there's this photograph, which I'm putting on LinkedIn after this. I'll be preparing it. Oh, the day I arrived, how weird is this, in Portsmouth. I found my way to the beach, as you do as a tourist. So I found the beach. I had no money for food or whatever, and you can keep going quite a long time without anything. And I'm looking at the Isle of Wight, literally thinking, what am I going to do? What have I done? And my back's hurting. I've got a bruised head, and what? I've got nowhere to live. I've got no money. What the fuck am I going to do? And this guy, who I later came back to me with the photograph, took a photograph of me, and I turned round and he caught me in that moment. How bizarre is that? And years later gave me the photograph. He said, "You look so lost and alone." And I thought, there's life. You look so lost and alone. I don't remember you asking me if I was okay, but you took my photograph. And isn't that the way it is? Isn't that we love to spectate? We love to pour over other people's misery and fears. But how many of us, I always step in. I never pass a homeless person. I make sure that every day I am giving somebody something because I was so close to losing it all. So by the end of that day, I had somewhere to live. And I think I had, no, I didn't get it. What happened was, this is where I started.
I've got a quick question before you tell me.
Yeah.
How did he come across you again later in life to give you that photo?
Because by the time he came across me again later in life, I was a university academic and I was at a drinks party. And he recognised my face.
Wow. That's nuts. Anyway, sorry.
It blew my mind because I had no memory of it, and I saw it. And I was like, "Whoa!"
It must have had such an impression on him. So you got to ask you a question. Well, hold on a minute. You see someone that looks lost and lonely, and you captured
a child,
it, and you've remembered it, but you never did anything about it.
And that is my point. That is most of the world.
Yeah, it is.
That is most of the world. We'll all talk about it. It's very easy to chatter. It's very easy to criticise. Only the very few step in and do something. And I've learned since my own experiences, the ones that really step in bravely with both feet and get things are those that know it.
Hmm. Yeah.
You have to know it.
So true.
Yeah. So that day, I'm looking at the Isle of Wight, thinking. So,
Well,
so I'm thinking, okay.
you trying to get there, or is it just something that you were looking at?
It took me years to even afford to get on the hovercraft, but I went to. You have to. We can all survive. We've all got. I had. This is what's really important to me now, and this is the work I'm really involved in. Is that we don't give our young people from adversity any benchmarking or recognition from the skills they've already got. I had survival skills, but no one had told me. So I walked to every phone box and picked up 2p's and 10p's that had fallen on the floor. I walked into a pub and I found that there was a phone box in the pub, a discarded copy of the Portsmouth News. I knew because I had read the Irishman's Oxford Mail over and over, and that's how I learnt to read over and over again. At the back, there would be rooms to let because I knew that because I'd read his newspapers. So this is where survival's not a mystery. It's just you have to recall what you already know.
Yeah.
So then I get a copy of the news and I go through it and I find bed sits, rooms to let. And I phone up a landlord, pretending I'm older than I am. I blag an appointment. I don't know what, no sat nav or, no. So I'm quickly asking people, where is this road? I find the road. I try and make myself look a bit older. So I put some lipstick. I had lipstick in my bag and I'm trying to sort of not look quite so out there with the big hair. And they didn't care anyway. And he said, "Have you got a deposit?" And I went, "I can get it for you."
I'm going to need a bit of time with that.
And I said, and I ended up going, "Oh, go on, let me have the." This is I'd gone from shyest child to now the biggest blagger overnight. And I can get you the money. I can get you the money. I'll have this room. He said, "But it's a bit dirty. I'll clean it. I'll sort it. Give me them." And then I walked up to the Department for Social Services, DHSS, which is a 5-mile walk, and asking people all the way. I found the offices. And I stood in a queue and I said, "Look, this is my situation. I have nowhere to live." And they said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 15. They said, "You're entitled to nothing."
How?
And I said, "Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just talk to my manager." "No, you are entitled to something. £2.97 a week."
Oh, Jesus.
So when I used to get a fortnightly gyro, that was, nearly £5-6. So but that was the reality. And then, so on the way back from town, I stumbled across the Charlotte. I don't know if it's still in existence, but in Commercial Road in Portsmouth, there was the Charlotte Street Veg Market. And I literally just picked up vegetables off the floor and fruit and put them in my bag and walked all the way back to this new bedsit. And in my bedsit, I went to check the bedsit. They gave me an emergency gyro for £2.97. I got back to the bedsit. The landlord was waiting there with a key. And I think he was just like, "What?" And there was a baby belly and there was one saucepan, no plates, no nothing, no cutlery. But I had seen one of those. It was one of the first pound shops, a cheap shop, and I went in there. I went to the post office, cashed my gyro for £2.97, and bought myself a spoon. I have this spoon in my desk drawer, which I carry with me everywhere I go to remind me that I can survive anything. Because I bought this spoon, and I made this conscious decision that I would. It's like a cowboy spoon, and it's black and white. I should have got it out to show you, and it's it was a spoon. I made it a spoon because I can cut with the sides. I can scoop eat. I'd made this decision and it was beautiful.
I can
I
maybe
still
see
got
it.
a spoon. So I went back to the bedsit with spoon and a can of baked beans. I had to work out how to use the thing. But by the end of the week, I'd been back to that shop. I bought myself a bucket and a sponge and some car cleaning materials, and I knocked on every door and asked if I could clean people's cars.
So sorry, this is all in one day. At 15, like it's incomprehensible.
But you
That,
don't have, when you got nothing, you got to move quick. I'm very good still at moving very quickly to make things happen. That is because all of us have the ability to move on stuff if we want to.
Yeah.
And that procrastination is not, it becomes a luxury when you need somewhere to sleep and you need to eat. I could procrastinate now beautifully, put things off. But at the time,
you had no choice.
I had no choice. You had to move quickly. And weirdly, I decided to see everything as a challenge. It was all going to be a challenge, and I was going to do it. And then I gave myself an education, and I got myself into art school. I devised. Have I told you this about my alternative education plan?
I think we touched on it last time, but not in much detail. But I remember being fascinated by this. So please,
Education. I ended up becoming an educationist, and I'm still fascinated by how we learn, because I didn't learn in an official setting. I did the opposite of learning. I forgot as they were telling me stuff, that information would just evaporate. How I learned was I knew I had to go to college. I knew that to get out of this, and most kids know this. They know that to get away from their poverty, away from the situations they've been in, they need an education. Not only have we been told that, we know that. So to do that, I've got to get the qualifications. I'd already been expelled from school because I nearly burnt the school down by mistake. I put tiny tears in the oven because I was insulted that we had to cook a stew for when hubby came home. So I put the baby that we're meant to wash in the oven, and I put the stew in the baby bath and nearly burnt down the whole school. So that didn't help. So I'd already been expelled. I wasn't very good at school. Didn't understand it. And but I knew I needed an education. So the beds that I lived in, the big, huge back wall backed onto the high school for girls. So there were girls my age and older going to the high school. And I used to hear their bell in the morning. So I decided to use their day. I created my own school education and set myself homework 5 days a week. So when their bell went, I was sitting at my table with a dictionary that I'd got from a car boot, giving myself a spelling test. I'd have spelling in the morning, maths terrible at, but I had a go. I had to remember everything I thought I knew. And then there would be at 1 o'clock, World at One with Brian Redhead, the journalist, and I'd be learning about politics and how the world worked. Straight into Woman's Hour in the afternoon to understand feminism and my rights and interesting things that women are doing. Then double art.
Double art.
Yeah, and that was my homework. But every day I gave myself I'd give myself time to go to the library. I found where the library was. I couldn't afford books. And I'd get books out. I joined the library on day 2 or 3. And I was reading, Jack Kerouac. I was reading Kafka. I'd reading books that when I was at school, they would have laughed at if I said I wanted to read. But I was hungry for knowledge. And most children love learning. In fact, all children love learning. I've never met one child that didn't love learning and didn't have natural curiosity. It's just beaten out of them. So I got myself a portfolio, a couple of bin bags, because I couldn't afford a portfolio. And at 16, I went to the art school. And I said, can I come to art school? And I said, you're 2 years too young. So I just carried on for 2 more years, building work, I was a chambermaid. I was still doing ironing for people. I was car cleaning. I was taking up jobs, building up a bit of savings. Eventually, I went for the interview when I was 17, nearly to be 18 when it was started. And the same 2 lecturers, who are still my friends, looked at me and they said, okay, let's look at your work. And I went, you're in.
Oh, wow.
And I was in. That was it. I got to art school and I became a university academic at 22. So I'd gone from being the idiot in the class to now standing at the front talking, and I was teaching art history and going back to all the times I avoided school and went to galleries and museums. I have a really good grounding about ancient civilization. Only when I understand history and ancient civilization could I understand what happened to me. I needed to know about the war. I needed to know how that trauma affected humanity and how all those people never got any help. And I'm just part of that journey for them. How many of us have got parents who were brought up by people who were grieving and broken, And then it's all right. Once you understand, it's all right. It's okay, and I can live with it like that.
Of course. The self, I think because I, like you, very ADHD, wasn't diagnosed at school, absolutely hated school, but I masked it very well, so fairly popular and had lots of friends, and I was always the one messing around with them all. But when it actually came to sitting in a chair and listening to a teacher, I was so bad and just could not do it. It went over my head. I didn't understand. I couldn't hear what was being said. And so I'd mess around and I was the class clown, and eventually I got a bad reputation. But I guess my own mini trauma around school is that I just fucking hated it. I can't get my head around you sat there just self-educating. At that time, I just wanted to do anything but learn. I wanted to do anything but be there. I'd have played football. I'd have run and drunk alcohol with my mates. But
I still did all that.
Yeah, that was the evenings. I've got a question before we move on. You mentioned you were friends with the university lecturers. How you must have spoken to them, sort of, I guess, later in life, around that moment when they said yes and why they said yes. Have they ever sort of given you an explanation? Because I guess you probably, depending on which side of the coin you were, they tend to play by the rules, and you need grades and you need history and all of this stuff. You didn't. Why did they say yes?
Well, the one I'm really in contact with, and when my first book came out, I let him know, and I didn't know what he knew, or I never told anyone, because if you tell people you're in care as a girl, they go, "Oh, she was sexually abused, so she'll be up for anything."
Mm.
And we're very aware of that, so we don't like telling people that. But he said he saw something in me. He said he'd never seen before, and he said he could not. It was a whole thing. It was something that I was quite good at art, and I love ideas. I love ideas. I'm so excited by new ideas and how things are done. But he said when he met me, he said, "Where are your qualification certificates?" "Oh, I had a bedsit fire." I was, I'd gone from being reasonably okay to this blagger. But he said that he just said, "We saw something in you. We had to have you." And then it was the same person who later on in life gave me support when I became an academic. So I'm very grateful to him. And he, we all need someone to see something in us, don't we? And perhaps it's the fact that I couldn't cope with school. I found I don't like being controlled. I become out of control when I'm feeling I'm being controlled. I walk away. Who wants to be controlled? Who has the need to control others? I don't.
No.
I have no desire to, which is why I never went into management. I never did anything like that. I don't care. And I think it's, and I think when I was teaching, I revealed my lack of ambition to climb the slippery pole was when it snowed. Every time it snowed, and I looked on the website, this is when I was sort of senior academic, was if it snowed and it said the university's closed today, I cheered, grabbed an IKEA bag and went down the slope with my friends and my kids. So if it snowed, I said, "Yay!" But the ones that took it very seriously were like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'll work at home." Fine.
Enjoy life.
So I think I think we got to find people find us. I'm old enough now to know that people present themselves to us at the right time.
Mhm.
And I know that not everyone is good or good for us. But one thing you do learn when you have been alone with your thoughts, and you know that things have happened to you that shouldn't have happened to you, you make a choice. You lift yourself up or you push yourself down. I don't want to push myself down. I learned to smile, and this is the wonderful thing about children, and the wonderful thing I've learned now. Everything that I was doing naturally as a child, now people run programs in it. Like, I was counting the corners on doors and windows. I just used to sit there counting them. That's now a technique used for post-traumatic stress. Counting
Wow.
to 4, counting to... I was doing that anyway.
Yeah.
The idea that, I used to smile all the time. Even on the most miserable day, I would be smiling, and my need to smile was in my childlike brain. I thought, no one's going to rescue me if I look miserable. So I smile. When you smile, you release all the good stuff in your brain that makes you feel happier.
Mhm.
So my little tactic to one day I will be rescued for all this, but only if I smile and I look like, marketing again. If I look like, someone would want me, that might be some sort of savior. And I was only little. I always smiled at people. And then I got used to it and I was always smiling at people. And guess what? I'm a happy person
Yeah.
because I smile. And I see people with these sort of like faces that do that. You can smile. You might make more friends.
Yeah. It's positive thinking, isn't it? I
It's
mean,
and that's exactly what it is.
yeah.
And I know so many people who probably didn't have as devastating childhood as myself, or weird, who are absolutely miserable. They just dwell on the past. And my
Yeah.
whole philosophy is shit happens. I don't need to
Also,
keep visiting it. And I
yeah.
just need to learn to live with it. And I choose to live with it in a way which suits me, which is I call upon it when I need material from a book. So
So, God, you're such an incredible woman. I was just thinking about it just then. Actually, I was thinking. I wanted to say sort of what next. It feels like we've lived about 3 lives already, and we're into just about into adulthood. Which I guess we can fast forward maybe a little bit. I don't know, but I think it's really important for people to understand both the story, which you've spoken through in detail, but like what happened next, and what happened next is so incredible. I'd love to talk a little bit about that journey.
I did the college thing, and I was very successful, and I became an academic. And I also, to save money and to make money, I became a freelance fashion stylist and illustrator. Blagged my way into that. Because there wasn't a career for it. I just like clothes. I just like dressing. I love clothes. I love makeup, and I love the whole glam thing. So I wanted to do that, and then I started making some money. And money makes you confident, and I
Yeah.
was learning to be confident anyway. But on the way, what the biggest thing I had the biggest awakening was the choice in boyfriends I had to change. And
Right.
this was quite prolific, and I think important for all of us, that when you have had so much discomfort and you have lived with people that play games with your mind and abuse, they call it gaslighting now, don't we? We didn't have a name for it then.
Yeah.
But when people abuse your youth or your kindness or your general being, and people choose to be nasty to you, stop going out with them, Louise.
But it's very common, right? It's very common to.
I
Uh,
picked narcissists, you name it. And then one day, and I was working so hard in these, everything else in my life was brilliant. But I was in these relationships with these, not like lots, but because the other thing about coming from care and all that, we are very loyal. I've been married 5 years to a person I met when I was 18, 19, didn't go out with them, but went out later. We're incredibly loyal. We're loyal to work with. We're so loyal, but we're also a bit stupid. And that is that we we misunderstand that what is love, and that is really important, because love isn't someone choosing to make you unhappy. Love isn't when you have to curb your sense of self and your fun and your humor and your style and your very being to suit someone else's narrative or wants.
Yeah.
Love is when you are entirely yourself. That is it. I didn't understand that. I was bending over backwards trying to please people, running around, please like me, please like me. And of course, people take advantage of that, and they can see it in you. Even if you don't think you're projecting it, they can see it in you. So I had a few rough rides, quite literally, with these men. And then I thought, right, okay. So at 24, I remember I was splitting up from this particular boyfriend who, this is a classic line, he was very privileged, went to all the best art schools, very long chain of wealthy family. And then he was doing that rich boy, I want to rough it a bit, sort of get on down with the rough poor people. So he went out with me, and we were going out, and he'd been so privileged, been through the private school sector and everything. And one day, he didn't even know a fraction of my story. And one day, after he had been drinking, or had all been out, you know what it's like when everyone goes out. And he turned around to me and said, "It's not fair. What? You've had a hard life."
Oh, God.
And that summed up what I must avoid for the rest of my life.
Well, you're good at learning lessons anyway.
It took a while, but
Yeah.
learning to be loved and to love is very hard when you have been abused, because we believe that the people loved us when they were abusing us. I looked after a little boy 12 years ago, so he must be a fully fledged man now, who adored me. So every time he saw me, he came up to me and kicked me really hard. And I go, why are you doing that? And then I found out that every time his mum's boyfriend threw him down the stairs or hurt him, mum would say, "But you know he loves you."
So sad.
So we tell children about when they mix the most fundamental, beautiful thing we can all have as human beings, love, is that I did it. I thought love was pain. I thought love was being made to feel bad about myself. I've had children who's, I don't know, have got tragic abandonment issues, because when they were abandoned, the parents said, "But I love you," and then go. So we got to think about that, because I think if you give love, because we all, and another thing, all the children that are now adults and the children that I've looked after, they're so willing to give their love. They want to love. But it's so easy to abuse and exploit. So the biggest thing we can do is to love ourselves first.
Yeah.
Just love ourselves.
Huge lesson. So when did the book come about, or the first?
The first book came about, 10 years ago now. I had finished teaching. I'd done it for 23 years and wanted to do something else. I wanted to go back into studio. I'm an artist primarily. That's my trade. I never knew I was a writer because I was told I was stupid. I was told I was dyslexic. I believed I was dyslexic. I think I'm just bad at spelling and grammar because I wasn't really at school paying attention and no one picked it up. I met one of my adopted siblings. I found an adopted sibling, and I was trying to piece the jigsaw together. I wanted some kind of, I'd had children. I'd had 1 or 2 children by then, and I felt I haven't got a heritage for them. I haven't got a legacy. I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm just here. This is it. So there was nothing. And I knew that they'd start going, well, where did that nose come from? Or where did those eyes come from? Or, and I had no answer. So I thought I'd start with the family I knew. So I found a sibling and we met. And when I met him, he was older than me. And because I remember he was taken away from the house quite quickly by social workers and put in residential care. He was taken away from the family home because he was being beaten to a pulp and emotionally and physically abused, and he was put in residential care where he was beaten to a pulp and physically, sexually, and mentally abused. And then at the age of 16, he was driven to what's called the Cowley Road in Oxford by a social worker and given £10 and good luck.
Jeez.
And when he told me that, because I never knew this happened to him, I said, "What happened to all the children in the children's home?" He said, "They're either dead or in prison." I was like, I felt so fortunate that I'd run away.
Yeah, I
I
guess it's
felt
more.
so happy that I'd run away and that I'd gone under the radar of the system, because I'd literally ducking and diving. If anyone said you need to go to children's social care and ask, I'd been, no way. So I felt so fortunate that my journey had been, by the time I met him, I was living well, I was married, I had children, I was earning good money. I had a really good life, and he didn't. So, and that made me unhappy, and I felt you get this thing called survivor's guilt,
Mhm.
where I felt that was hard because that makes no sense whatsoever, but you do.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to tell our story. I started off by wanting to tell both our stories, and we got his file from Children's Social Care, which was like that.
Wow.
And then mine was like that. But because he was in children's homes, and that's where I learned about body maps and about, and I was reading it with him, and he had so many trips to A&E. This is not normal. So many cover-ups, and knowing what I know now, I can see what was happening. And then I said to him, "Shall we do it?" And then he said, "Well, you can. I'm not doing it. I don't want to go there." I said, "Well, are you happy if I go there?" So I included bits of him with his permission. And it was very difficult because because I'm naturally happy because I smiled a lot. He is naturally glum because he didn't smile a lot. And I
Yeah.
think you've got to smile and you've got to love yourself and you have to learn to laugh. And because I did those things, because I met that lovely Irishman, I was already laughing. He didn't have those skills. So he found it much harder than me. So I went ahead and I thought, well, no one's going to publish this, but I'll give it a go. Oh my word, getting a book published, how hard is that? So I went. I was a rejection, but I'm used to rejection. So I learned to love the rejection, where most people say, "Well, I had 5 rejection letters. I'm never doing it again." I was like on 105 and that's still going. And then I found an agent who eventually became my agent. She's still my agent. She's wonderful. But I got rejected. Yeah, I had the but I didn't like the typeface. It was a cut and paste, and it was from an intern. So I wrote to her saying, I can understand the rejection, whatever, but I do things for myself, and never. But this is your organisation. I said, but look at the email. It's a cut and paste. It shows no care. Or I think the intern was sacked, and I got an agent
Oh wow.
because I didn't go there to be difficult, but I always think you should call things out. And
Mhm.
anyone running an organization needs to know that their organization might not being presented as well as it should be. So I
Best
told her,
feedback.
and
Yeah.
I've got a brilliant agent for the last 9-10 years.
Wow.
So the first book was with Simon and Schuster, and it became a bestseller. I was on breakfast television, and and there was a book about Donald Trump, which was number 1 in the charts nationally. And by the time I'd got back on the train and got back home, mine was number 2.
Oh wow.
Power of media. So I was instantly a bestseller from and writing after somebody who had been told I was stupid. Then I had a break for a year thinking, what do I do? I don't know, this is overwhelming. Oh, God, I'm a writer now. I never thought I was a writer. I'm an artist. I'm like, God. So after I sort of come to terms with that, I thought, what do you need to write about? What you know.
Mhm.
And I'm a foster carer. So I started writing about being a foster carer. And then I think I'm on book 12 now. So they've all been bestsellers.
Wow.
So I write
Unbelievable.
about what I know, and I write about in my books. I write, I tell the reality of how bonkers our care system is, and how amazing our children are. They're amazing.
Do you ever do you ever I don't even know if it's the right question. Do you ever pinch yourself and just think, what the fuck? How am I here?
Well, the reality is, when I used to come back from, I've been on TV a lot and on radio a lot, and I'm actually incredibly comfortable in that space. And someone that was so shy, I'm like, oh, okay. And the reality that is, when I come through, when I leave a TV studio, I come home and there's a pile of washing. There's dirty dishes. There's I'm getting texts. I'm waiting to go on TV and I'm getting texts. Mum, where are my socks? You know,
Life
it's
goes on. I heard a funny story earlier on, actually, on another podcast I was listening to about Mick Jagger. And he came back from a world tour, walked through the front door, and Jerry Hall handed him the baby and said, "Baby needs changing, and there's some washing on that you need to put away." And he turned around and said, "I'm Mick Jagger." And she said, "You got to do it anyway."
don't care who you are. That's the reality. The reality is the car needs servicing, the bills need paying, the weeds keep growing in the garden.
Yeah.
So I I have a lovely life now, and I'm writing more books. I've got a new series, which is a much harder, much darker series about girls being caught up in county lines and trafficking. Because when I lived in Oxford, people keep saying, "Oh, county lines, that's new." Rubbish.
Yeah.
It's been going on forever. Look at Fagin and Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
They were really Victorian children in workhouses moving opium around and being molested by dirty old men then. So none of this is new. But when
No.
I was in the 80s, in the early 80s, I was 13, 14. And you think like a 13, 14-year-old. We were given packages. We were paid. This is why you got to put money in children's pocket. I don't let any of my children go out without money. Is that we were we were rockabillys. They're now roadmen, aren't they?
Yeah.
With the buzz cuts they were rockabillys, and they all had their check shirts and their you know. We thought, oh, they're so cool, and they talked us into getting on the bus or the National Express and going up to a particular nightclub, which I won't say out loud, and taken smack up for people to use. Then we'd be back in time to go to the pub with cash in our hands. So it's been going on
Of course.
forever. Kids are the easiest way to mule information, drugs, weapons. So my new series is about girls, because there's this horrible narrative that keeps going around visually and verbally that county lines are black teenagers who drive Beamers and they're from the metropolis. Utter rubbish. They're vulnerable, frail, fair skinned children from villages and towns.
Mm.
That's county lines, who are being run by gangs who
Yeah.
come from wherever. So, and the other myth is that everyone thinks it's boys.
Yeah.
Girls are busy in county lines, but they're there because they've been procured and they're being used as sex workers. They're being used to move stuff about. One of my books is a story about a girl I met. I don't know how I'm going to work with her, who's only 6, whose backpack was stuffed with crack and heroin every day. No one even questioned it as she was walking through the city, holding hands with one of the gang members, delivering. No one ever questioned it. Girls, you hide in plain sight.
Mm.
You
So
know,
how,
so
how 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 did the series come about? I mean, so I presume you mean TV and not books.
No, these are books, hopefully going on to TV. Um,
Right.
because I'd looked after quite a few girls that were caught up in county lines, and no matter
Well,
how,
write what you know.
eh?
Write what you know.
Always write about what you know, then you get it right.
Yeah, cool.
And I couldn't get them help because they were girls. They just, if girls are instantly called sluts, or they deserve it, or the whole attitude to girls now. And now on the back of all this Andrew Tate nonsense and all the stuff going on in America, it's
Yeah.
even harder. So you diminish girls and they become more useful to you.
Hmm.
So it had to be said, and I was asked to do it, because I was doing it and I was working with the girls, and then as you dig more and more, you realise just how many girls are involved, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Wow. And then I guess it brings us maybe quite nicely onto the charity, because we haven't spoken about that yet.
Yeah, that's thank you. Um, a few. Well, I've always looked after girls, fostered girls. I have two sons, and I thought that I thought that they might get jealous if I looked after more boys. Only in my head, I never actually had, because they were really little when I started. But I thought, well, I'll focus on girls because I haven't got a biological daughter. I have stepdaughters who are now in their 30s. Um, so I thought I'll focus on girls. I get girls, and I've looked after loads with my husband and my children. But I can't. I could never believe what I could hear when people talk about girls, social workers, teachers, their families, themselves, about themselves. And then a few years ago, 3 years ago now, I was invited to work in a residential home as me to work with girls. And I said to them, "What are you all doing when you leave then? Because you all leave at 16, don't you?" "Oh, I don't know." They do that teenage.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's not really very good, is it? What do you mean you don't know?" Anyway, I finished my work and didn't forget about them. Used to think, well, I wonder what they're all up to. And then one by one, literally, they started contacting me on Instagram and all the other social media platforms I've got. About two. I was making myself out to be something I
You're
really
on
don't
TikTok,
think
aren't
out
you?
there.
Did you say you're on TikTok?
No, the girls are. I'm not
The
on
girls
TikTok.
are, right.
No, the
Oh,
girls are. And some of the more happening people I know. But they got hold of me, and I was like, they're going, "Oh, hi, Louise." They were so polite, and with that experienced head, handled it really well. "What's going on? What's going on for you? Where are you? What are you doing? Where are you? What are you doing?" And then they're like, "Oh, I'm in assisted living. I'm doing this," and then and this is really important because none of them were speaking to each other, so they'd lost their network. 8 of them left, and the behavior that had been allowed to happen in the residential home, it was a bitch fest. So they'd all shut each other out of their lives and blocked each other, so they had no
yeah.
support. So they're contacting me, so I literally load up my car with food and stuff for girls and red velvet cakes and sanitary products, mum.
Yeah.
And I went to visit them all, and it broke my heart. I was already very busy, and the last thing I needed to do was to set up a charity. But going back to that, I managed to get myself a bed sit by the end of the day brain. And this is terrible. And I found things that actually made me so sad I could cry. Was I saw two of the girls who revealed to me that they don't stand up for 2 or 3 days in their period in the mid flow because they can't afford any sanitary products. And they have to run to the toilet and run back, so they can't go anywhere, which is one of the reasons they're not in education. I thought, what world are we living in? What world are we living in? They'd gone from having everything, hair, nails, uh, thousands of photographs of making memories. And did I just do that? I hate it when people do that. Making memories. They're going. I don't know. Euro Disney. They're going to. There's pictures of Mexican hats. There's pictures of them here, there, everywhere. Things that I could never afford or have the time for with my children. And then it stopped. And they have 50 to 60 to 70 pounds a week, depending on which local authority they were with. And that's it. They got paid for everything. So
Plus, there's the again, you may know them. I don't quite, but the mind-boggling statistics about care leavers and what happens to them afterwards in terms of employment or prison. I think I was at a conference recently where someone stood up and said, I think it's he may have been talking about boys, but I'm sure they're still quite close. 75% of care leavers will be unemployed for the rest of their life, or something like that. Some crazy stat.
And how is that even slightly acceptable? How is that even?
Well, especially given that you've highlighted in your own story just how you said, I call it entrepreneurial. It's true. At Story Group, we have these amazing young people, and actually, God, they're more adept to starting a business than most people who start a business, because the survival, the entrepreneurial, the always finding a way, the never say die attitude that it takes, these core skill sets that they don't really know they have. So, yeah, I think it's a mind-boggling stat.
It was well, there are over 800,000, closer to 900,000 people between 16 and 24 in the UK who aren't even in education, employment or training, the NEETs.
Yeah.
You have is it 13% of children from care go to university, but how many are staying? So I couldn't find that data.
Yeah.
And as someone that used to teach in universities, they all, I hear this a lot. How can we get more children from care into college and university? Well, completely change everything you're doing. That's the only way you're going to do it, because your entire curriculum is devised by room bookings. So you're building a curriculum where on a Monday they're being on 11, Tuesday they're being at 9, Wednesday they might not be in at all, Thursday they're in at 3. How can you live like that when you have your biggest fear is going back into chaos again?
Mm.
It doesn't work. So then they turn it on. Well, they're not engaging. Engaging with what? And how can they invite students back to their assisted living homes when there's somebody watching them the whole time and they can't afford to offer anything? How can they go down the pub or socialize with the other students? You're excluding them. The best outcome, and this is what the charity is all about. After having my heart broken again, watching these girls and thinking, well, I've got to do something. What? Initially set up the charity to act as a network and mentoring. I abandoned that completely, because as soon as you get into mentoring, you're getting into HR issues almost. And I thought what they need is something really practical. So for me, my life improved when I got money in my pocket. And they don't have any money in their pocket. And if you don't have money in your pocket, you're on £3,200 a year. Whoa, ho, hello, County Lines. Where are you? How can I make some money? You don't even have to recruit me. I'm recruiting myself because I need money. And that's what it all comes down to. So we set up the charity in the end, and our core mission is teaching life and employment skills to girls, with the graduation part being into apprenticeships and to employment. Get them into work, because once they're into work, they are safe. They are not roaming. They are not lolloping, feeling depressed, self-diagnosing, all these things on misery sort of feeds. They're with different peer groups. They're with people who will probably keep an eye on them, who are safe. Some of them are going to be working for very large organizations whose corporate offer is free healthcare, free counseling, financial support. Hello. And they can start on 16,000, 18,000 for some engineering firms. I've been talking to employers who can offer £24,000 to a 17-year-old.
Wow.
And then you start saving. The biggest problem was that the girls didn't have any money management skills. I didn't. I started with nothing. So I was so terrified of having less than nothing, so that I really managed my money. But because a lot of the girls have been in care, which may sound weird, sometimes spoils them.
Yeah.
You know, they have everything, they have nothing, and then they have everything, and then they have nothing. And it hasn't taught them the value of what they have. You only miss what you have or know what you had when it has gone. So these girls go, oh, I can't get my nails done. I can't get my hair done. I said, well, you need to get yourself a job. That's how it started. I don't know how to get a job. So we run a month-long program with this wonderful another charity. One of the things I've discovered is that charities connect with charities, and then we're more powerful. We all have our strengths. And the trouble with charities is that we spend so much time away from the work we originally want to do, trying to get funding. You could end up being a charity just focused on funding. So we connected with other charities, and one of them is called Feminenza, who do the first week of our month-long program, and that is literally teaching resilience skills. That's teaching you how to know your strengths that you already have, how to be among your peers, how to have a friendship which is fruitful and kind, and just not this stuff that you are modeling on your own family in your residential experience or your foster carers. How to be you, the best possible you, and how to deal with the fear that you might have about the next stage. And one thing I've noticed when we talk about mental health, because the first week is all about mental health, is that it's amazing how their mental health improves so dramatically when they can see a future.
Crazy.
Isn't it? We're just being joined by Douglas, who's in every book I've written. There we are.
Oh, look. For anyone listening and
He,
not watching, a
he is
beautiful
our
dog has entered the building.
he is our one of our therapeutic support team workers. I have 3 cats and 2 dogs that do more brilliant work than I could ever describe, but he obviously wants to be in on this. So hello.
He's more than welcome. Okay, so God, wow, what an episode! How do I tie this back into the future? So I mean, I think it's actually a really nice point. So I think when we heard your story previous, we being Brian and I, yeah, we were so unbelievably inspired. And you know, I've said a lot of stuff today, and I don't necessarily need to go back there too much, but I think you're an incredible person. I think there's probably no one in the country like you, and I think you are such an inspiration. And it's no secret that Brian and I want to do huge things along with some of the other business partners that we've got in Story and around. One of the big things that I want to do is I want to be able to support founders, charities, companies who are feeding into the children's sector, because my background's marketing, and the more people I speak to, the more I see people with really amazing intentions and purpose and desire to do something, but without necessarily the skills needed to do it, particularly around the growth of their business or the marketing of their story or spreading the word. I know how to do that. And so we sort of put our heads together, and we were so inspired by you and inspired by your story that we came up with an idea for a marketing agency that just does just that. And I'm very, very, very humbled and proud that yesterday I got on a call with Louise and I pitched to her the name of our agency, and the name is Louise, and it's based really and inspired by you and your story, and with the goal to help and champion the people who are helping young people and to stop stories like this from happening again. And so it's going to be founder support, it's going to be brands, storytelling, marketing campaigns, campaigns to get donors for charities. There'll be a whole host of things. And Louise, I'm very lucky that she said yes. We're going to partner with her charity. We're going to try, and Louise has got an incredible brain. I think we're quite aligned in terms of the crazy ideas and the creative ideas that we both have. And so I think there's going to be so much stuff that we can do to help drive some of those ideas for you and support them and bring them alive. And I think probably vice versa. So yeah, I'm really, really, really excited about bringing this alive and helping more and more people.
Oh, it's brilliant. When we had the conversation yesterday, I think I said to you, I can't wait to tell Lloyd. That's my husband.
What did he say?
Oh my God, they're creating a monster.
Well, it's a good monster nonetheless.
And I told my sons, both my sons, they're not there yet, it's a bit too young, but they're moving towards digital because my husband's a graphic designer and I'm creative and we love that world. We know that world, we love that world, and they have grown up with it. So they're moving towards that anyway. And I told them, they're like, what? So that was really good. So the first one was always try it out on your family. My children, you probably know this, that when you have children, they're the people that pay the least attention to who you are and what you do. So every time they'd literally be watching TV and then my face would appear and I'd go, what? What's going on? And I think it's so exciting because I know so many wonderful people who are setting up or have set up charities or not-for-profits with the best intentions. They usually because they have observed how things are not working, or they come from actual experience.
Yeah.
And I think what I have gleaned over, particularly as I came back into this world when we started fostering, is that it would be much better if people listened to and acted on the wisdom of those who have actual experience.
Agreed.
And it's the same with fostering. Foster carers are trained by social workers who never foster.
No.
That's
in itself.
People are, and trauma, the whole idea of trauma. I mean, I was talking, I've already got a client for you. I was talking to someone earlier about the whole idea of trauma is that the dissemination of buzzwords is so watered down, it actually becomes dangerous because people have lost the core meaning. I am a big, big fan of keep it real, keep it down to earth, and keep it in manageable. And for example, I talk about trauma. I talk about being brokenhearted because everyone has been brokenhearted. We've all been betrayed. We've all, been bullied or bullied. To bully actually hurts you. We've been let down. We've been, work, home, love, life. Go to those feelings and turn the volume up. Then you know what children are feeling. Except children can't go home, drink a bottle of Chianti or whatever, and put their music on and dance around, because if they behave anything that wasn't like perfect or the day before, then they're analysed, written about, and then punished.
Yeah, of course.
So we gotta remember that we're dealing with some very broken-hearted children. They have been abandoned. They feel abandoned. That is horrible. So we gotta do this from a place of complete understanding, which isn't about highbrow information and research. It's about keeping it absolutely real. Mirror back to the children the love that they need.
Yeah.
Just do the right thing.
Meaningful, natural language, authentic. I think one of my absolute passions in life, I've been drawn to it my entire life, is someone with purpose. And what I mean by that is I'm fantastic at listening to someone's purpose and really buying into it, believing it, and then using it to fuel a whole load of creativity and make some noise. That's why I'm doing this agency, because I know I can do it. I've done it many times before, and I think there are just so many incredible people out there that need it, that need that support, because what they're doing is amazing, but they're not scratching the surface. And if we can help them to do that, then my job's done.
I think it's incredible, Richard. What you've done is one of my sons said that's genius, because you're pulling together the network, which could be an alternative to the broken system that we're shoveling children through, and it's just not right. And I have this saying that I nicked from someone else, and I don't know who it was. I heard it on the radio years ago. It's about love for children. We can feel the love, but their idea of love, until they get their love right, could be dangerous.
Yeah.
could be harmful. So what I say to everybody who works with children, the children we're talking about, is your whole mission should be to do right by them.
Mm.
Whatever you think about them as human beings, or whatever bias or whatever prejudice or what, your job is to do right by them. So get on with it.
What an amazing way to finish this podcast. I think, yeah, as I said, your story is incredible, and I think the work you do is incredible. So much so that you inspired a company out of me. So I'm so excited to go on a bit of a journey with this, and we're going to change some lives. We're going to make a real difference. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for trusting us actually to use your name, because that's a big thing, right? And so yeah, we're going to make sure we do it proud,
Thank you.
and I look forward to that journey.
Thank you, and it's an honour. It's a pleasure, and I'm quite astute. I'm quite wise. I'm definitely a looked after child with heightened awareness, and I know who to trust and who not to trust, and I trust you all implicitly, and I'm thrilled.
Thank you so much. Well, look, thank you for telling your story today. I think you tell it as passionately today as the 1,000 other times you've told it. So yeah, I hope people enjoy it, and you watch this space for Louise the agency.
Brilliant.
See you later.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.